Growing up poor and without a dad, Kenneth P.K. Clark believed he'd end up either dead or in prison. But his life took a different turn as he learned to shed the labels of his childhood.
And if you want all the new things, if you want to reinvent yourself, you got to go get it. It's not going to come to you. You can either be a victim to your circumstances or you can be victorious. And you get to choose.
How P.K. Clark went from fatherless, poor, and illiterate to a pastor and mentor to at-risk youth by choosing victory over victim. On Reinvention at Any Age. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Reinvention at Any Age. I'm Amy Sweezy, and I am passionate about helping you navigate through your reinvention. My guest today has a powerful story of resilience and purpose. Kenneth W. Clark is the founder of Vibrant Families, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting underserved communities, especially at-risk youth and fatherless young men, through mentorship, education, and building community. His work isn't just professional, it's deeply personal. Kenneth, now known as PK, grew up fatherless, poor, and unable to read until the age of 13. For years, he carried the weight of those labels. But instead of letting his past define him, he chose to rewrite his story. Today, with more than 20 years of leadership experience in both corporate and ministry spaces, PK leads a coaching and consulting practice where he helps couples, leaders, and organizations strengthen relationships and create a legacy. PK is passionate about helping others reinvent themselves, from overcoming labels to rewriting their story. Please welcome Kenneth W. Clark, aka PK, to the podcast. Hi, PK. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, what's up, family? It's so good to be here. So good to be a part of what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to talk to you and to have you share some of your story with our listeners. And whenever I start a podcast, I always ask the guests to just give us a little history about themselves, where they're from, where they grew up, their life as a kid. But starting with that question for you is really the whole crux of your story. I know you grew up with a lot of labels: fatherless, poor, uneducated, behind. So let's just start with explaining what those childhood labels meant to you. First, fatherless.
Yeah, growing up from little town, East Texas, called Longview, Texas, and being fatherless, you don't know. I think all of us, you don't know what you're missing until you're around some of it. And so there were several of my friends growing up. We didn't have fathers, but for me, now being in my late 40s with three teenage daughters and a wife of 24 years, there's still things in my life now that I have to navigate through because of not having a father or a male role model in my life in those early years. And so fatherless to me is dealing with a huge amount of insecurities that I've had to navigate through, dealing with uncertainty. Now we all deal with uncertainty to some degree, but when it's at your core, some of those things that would come, examples, early in my marriage, my wife would say, "Hey, can you fix the pipe?" And I would think, I have no idea how to fix the plumbing. I don't know electrical. I don't know some of those basic things that you would kind of get passed down, that a dad would say, "Here, son, this is how you do that." And so I would instantly go into this insecurity of, man, I'm not a good husband. I'm not a good provider. I'm not, although I can afford to have someone do that, deep down, there's been core things because of not having the security and the affirmation of a safe home, of a male telling me that I was good enough. And so went into people pleasing a lot. Just want to make sure everybody was happy. Want to make sure everybody was good. And so not having a dad or a man in my life that could teach me, coach me, mentor me, but also love me unconditionally. Now being 40, 48 this year, there's moments where, man, I wish I had a dad now that I could call, that I could talk to, that I could have a conversation with, somebody that's known me my whole entire life, that I can say, "Hey, I'm navigating through this. What's your advice? I've been fortunate enough to surround myself and seek out some really, really great mentors that can step in that role. But there will never be another man that could replace the role of my biological father.
You had a mom, but you were poor and uneducated. Why didn't you read until you were 13?
Yeah, great question. I think, growing, my mom couldn't read. My mom, at least I was in school. So my mom had to drop out of school in the third grade, which was common in that area, East Texas, a lot of farmland. And so our family grew up on a farm. And so the only days they could really attend school, my wife, my mom, I have 11 uncles and aunties. So I've come from a big family, and the only days that they could typically go to school is the days that it did rain, because that's the days they couldn't work the farm. And so my mom couldn't read. She had an equivalent of a third grade education, so she couldn't teach me. So I just kind of went through school, went through the motions as long as I could, until I was adopted and moved in with a family that looked nothing like me, complete different culture, and then they were able to begin to catch me up to get me to that place.
You mentioned the adoption. You ended up being adopted. How old were you at that point and why? What was that process?
Yeah, my mom, she was just at a place where I started to make decisions where I was running with the wrong crowd, getting into some trouble, and my mom just said, I can't deal with this anymore. I can't help you anymore." And so at the time we were living, we had moved to Oklahoma, and we were living in Oklahoma City, and she was basically going to turn me over to the state of Oklahoma. And since my mom had glaucoma, so she's never driven a day in her life, so she couldn't read, couldn't drive a vehicle. We walked everywhere, and so there was this. She got this job at a nursery taking care of kids, and where there was a young white couple that would pick my mom and me up to take us to church so she could watch kids. And through months of conversation, they kind of got the gist that my mom was ready to turn me over to the state because there was nothing more that she could do. And they simply said, "We feel that God has a calling on his life, and we would love to be a part of that if you would have us." And so there was the full adoption never took place because that would mess up, as my mom would call it, mess up her money. And so I just moved in with that family, and still would stay at my mom's house periodically, um, from time to time. And so that was at the age of 13 when I moved in. And so I went from a kid that had never had a bedroom, never had a bed. I slept on the floor, made a pallet every night next to my mom, moved in from that environment, never having fruits and vegetables or anything like that, to moving into an environment where I had my own bed. Back then, I had a water bed. I thought I'd hit the lottery. Back in the 1991, had me a water bed. And so, but I had my own room, and that was difficult even to adjust to that because I didn't know what to do with this space. Like this, it was scary, and so I would find myself sitting in my closet because that was safest for me. Because you sit in the closet a lot when I was with my mom in the hood, a lot of gunfire, just a lot of activity happening. And so that was a safe place. So I'm sitting in this nicer home, sitting in the closet rocking because I'm so uncomfortable. So moving into that environment, going from a predominantly black school, Hispanic school, moving into a predominantly white school, was a huge transition. I think that when I first was adopted, we went to the mall for the first time. I'd never been to the mall until I moved in with my guardians, and never had bought new clothes. That was the first time that I bought something off the rack that I could pick, and so just it was a wild, just night and day experience having to navigate those two worlds.
Talking about it now as an adult, you sound very calm and you've had lots of time to think through it. But I'm wondering, how you're feeling as a 13-year-old. Are you angry? Are you upset? Are you excited that, hey, I have these new opportunities by going to the mall and having my own room? Or is it sort of a mixture of all of those emotions?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, now I've had many hours of therapy, and I still go, and so that's why I love coaching. I love serving people in that matter to help them get that place. But Yes, at a 13-year-old kid, I was very angry. I thought my mom didn't want me. I thought she didn't love me. I thought it was convenient to just displace me. And so I navigated through that of not being loved or wanted. One already had the issue that I never met my dad, that he didn't want me. So now here it is. My mom is physically giving me up. It wasn't until it was in my mid 30s where I was doing some work with a therapist that I realized what my mom actually sacrificed. My mom has since she's passed away about 11 years ago. How many parents would say, I can't do this well, and I'm going to turn the reins over to somebody else to do that? And once I realized that, oh my goodness, the compassion, the love that I had for my mom shifted like that. I realized this is a woman who made it to 67 years old that couldn't read, no education, never drove a car, but she figured out how to create. And then I realized she gave me the best she could. And I think so much of in life is, what if people are really doing their best? Sometimes we judge them, we criticize, but what if they're doing their absolute best? And my mom gave me her absolute best. And because of that, my life changed. My life was saved. If I wasn't adopted, I believe I would have been locked up or dead in the direction that I was headed.
You had to learn to reinvent yourself at a very young age, being placed into this family. Did you feel then at the time that you were sort of reinventing yourself, turning into or becoming a new person? Or was that something that came later after the therapy?
I don't think I was thinking that at a young age. I think I was just trying to survive. I'd been kind of uprooted out of this environment, planted in another one, but then there were so many new opportunities that presented themselves that I never knew existed. When you grow up poor, you grow up in the hood, there's not a lot of opportunities. As I'm reinventing myself, is because I'm being introduced to new things around new environments, new people.
How long would you say did those childhood labels stick with you? Was it your adoptive family? Was it your faith? What was it that helped you with those feelings of not being wanted or being feeling unworthy?
Yeah, all of it. You're navigating through some of those emotions that are to the core. Yeah, my relationship with God, my relationship with my parents, my relationships with everybody's impacted. And so, yeah, my encounter with God, I'd say that is the source. That is my ground. That's been there. I don't need to convince anybody else that God is real, because I know where He showed up, how He showed up, and when He showed up in my life. That it's been better ever since. And so, but yeah, it I mean, my guardians, when they first took me in, they were very clear. They said, "Kenneth, nobody owes you nothing." I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. They said, "Nobody owes you nothing. We don't owe you anything because you're black. We don't owe you anything because we took you in our home. If you want something, you go get it. Nobody owes you a thing." And that was kind of the first lesson that I realized, man, if you want all the new things, if you want to reinvent yourself, you got to go get it. It's not going to come to you. You can either be a victim to your circumstances, or you can be victorious, and you get to choose.
When was it that you started to formulate a career path?
Yeah, great question. I believe I went on my first missions trip, humanitarian trip, when I just turned 18, and there was this young mom that had put together 3 or 4 refrigerator boxes that was equivalent to her home, duct taped them, had them laid out different ways, and that was her home. Her son was playing soccer with a milk carton, and he couldn't have been happier. I thought I had a hard life. I thought I had a poor upbringing, but it's nothing compared to stepping into a developing country. And that's when like compassion sank. That's when I thought, man, I want to help the world. I want to help people. Whatever I do with my life, I want to help people.
And I do want to talk about vibrant families in a few minutes here. But you did pastor a church for a while then?
I did. Yeah, I was many times. Me and my wife met in Colorado Springs in 2001. Got married in 2003, and then moved here 2006 to plant a church with some dear friends here in Central Florida. And so since that, I've been a part of church plants, small churches. I've served as a teaching pastor, a missions pastor, all the above. But the name PK, Pastor Kenneth, kind of came out of that season. And so I did so much in the community. I love the community. PK is just kind of stuck.
Tell me about meeting your wife. How difficult was it to break the chains of your past as you move into this new relationship? I mean, I would say that going from a fatherless adopted kid into a marriage commitment was a whole reinvention of its own.
We definitely view the world completely different. She grew up with both her parents and siblings, and so yeah, there was a huge, and still we're still navigating through some of those my insecurities and my things that kind of pop up. Our story and us coming together is a whole story within itself. Just a little bit on that is her parents didn't really want her to marry me because of my color, and so and they kind of made our father made an ultimatum: if you continue down this road, you can no longer be a part of our family. So she made a choice and she chose me. And so even going through some of that counsel at the time at our church, it's somebody who I respected deeply, still in my life, a mentor now. He just said, Kenneth, we can never divorce. Divorce is never an option. Can't even talk about it in our home because it will prove her family right. If you marry her, your family will go with, and if you divorce her, your family will naturally go with you. And her family's already disowned her, and you'll leave her with nothing. Divorces. So it's been a word that we have never mentioned in 24 years of this year being married.
What kinds of challenges have you faced in an interracial marriage and how have you handled that?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think the one, I mean, yeah, we see the world different. We experience the world different. I mean, we eat different foods, different music. So from everything is different. I think it's then learning to be more curious about each other, learning why is that important to you? Why is that important? What does that mean when that happens? And so that has been probably the biggest thing of being able to understand and being willing to understand. So many of us get stuck in our ways and say, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to learn that. I don't want to try that. I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. But when you're able to say, I'm willing to try that, do that. I think one of the things that we loved about each other is we both love music. She's a piano major. I play drums. We both love to travel. We love the nations. And so there were so many common denominators that we already had. We did have to deal with obviously the culture piece and being in an interracial marriage. I think right now our girls are older. So now it's navigating kids that feel like, are they black? Are they white? Where do they fit in? And so that has probably been one of our bigger challenges as we're navigating through that actively right now.
Yeah, what do you tell them? What do you tell your daughters?
Yeah, I think we're having those conversations, and so when things pop up at school or when things pop up, let's talk about that. What's being said? What's being communicated? How do you feel? Where do you feel? And so it's really talking. When that comes up, when something is said, talk to me about that. How do you feel? And so now we're actually bringing in counselors. We're bringing in people that can help them beyond what we can help. The truth is, you're part of both those worlds. You don't have to pick. So I've got one daughter that really loves hip hop culture, and I got one daughter that loves dance. I got one daughter that's an athlete. And so find your space. But what we're going to communicate in this house is love. And so you're part of both of these worlds. Don't pick, blend it, make it one, make it yours. That's the cool thing you get to do. You don't have to just be one because I'm not one. I mean, I'm one, your mom is one, but you guys can blend it. And so, but we do live in a world where it's mean, it's tough. And so building them, giving them the tools to be strong, giving them the tools that they need so they can navigate through some of those tough conversations as well.
And I love that you said that you're bringing in outside help, outside counselors, because I think a lot of times that's what parents do. They think that they need to have all the answers, and we don't. And so many times we don't know what to say. We don't know what to tell them. And so you need to bring in somebody who can help them rather than just brushing it under the rug and forgetting about it.
For sure. For sure.
Tell me about Vibrant Families. How did this mission come about?
Man, vibrant families. Yeah, I think when I decided to step away, pastoring full time, kind of come back to the drawing board of what do I want to do? Like, what am I passionate about? And spoke with family and friends and my wife, and came down to, man, I wanted to reach that little boy. I wanted to reach Kenneth. How do I reach Kenneth? And my story and everything that's taken place. So I thought, man, I'm going to create an organization where we can help young men that don't have a dad in their life, don't have a father in their life, don't have people in their life that'll support them and love them for right where they are and who they are. So many times our kids are trying to get our approval through their works or through what they do, their straight A's or they're a great athlete or this or that. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but there's more to that kid. I think when I was a kid, I just wanted someone to say, I love you for who you are. I'm proud of you for who you are. Like I like you, not what you do, not what you may become, who you are right where you are. And so how can I create an organization that we can develop young men that don't have a father in their life? And we're not trying to replace their dad. But we're trying to make sure they grow up and know what a man is. What is manhood? What do men do? What do men don't do? Because if you don't have somebody showing you that and teaching you that, then you'll just do and become what's in front of you. And so when I created the organization, we wanted to focus on two things: education. Obviously, I couldn't read, and that's important. You need to be educated, but you got to be able to read. You got to be able to do math, your basic things. Our goal is we got to get them to graduate. And then we focus on new things, introduction. And I was introduced to a lot of new things that gave me new opportunities to say, oh, I can do that. That's available. Let's do that. And so when we blend those two worlds, we blend those two things together, education and creating new opportunities, man, we have a beautiful, beautiful model. And we mentor young boys starting at the fifth grade, and we stay with them all the way through high school. So it's not just a 1 year program. We're building relationship, we're building trust, we're building this beautiful bond over time that they'll always be a part of their lives, no matter where they go.
I love that. You said you do premarital and marriage counseling as well, as one of your many hats that you wear. What do you see as the biggest challenge that's impacting marriages today?
Oh, wow. I would say we are more distracted than we've ever been, with social media, with the hustle and bustle of life. And I also think we're bringing in just a lot of trauma from our past relationships, our past things. And so, um, but I would say the um, not being able to communicate at a high level. Most couples, even me in our early years, most couples fight really well, but most of us can't resolve. We walk away from a situation, and it just as we fight, we yell, we scream, or whatever your rhythm is, whatever your culture does, right? But then we don't walk away with a resolution. And so all that means is that we wake up the next day, that thing is unresolved, and we keep moving. And a lot of times we get just busy enough, and so we don't have to always work on ourselves or work on our marriage when there's so many other things that are distracting us. So not just social media in a relationship. Once the kid starts coming, if they're busy in sports and academics and things like that, that's enough to keep us busy. Which is why sometimes we'll find ourselves 25 years, 30 years into a relationship. We turn around, kids are gone, and we go, I don't know you. I don't think we should keep doing this. One of the things I encourage couples to do is, man, you got to stay on date nights. And I know it sounds cliche. I know it sounds, what, date night? No, because it reminds you of the person that you fell in love with. And I'm reminded, I really do like this person. Like I fell in love with this person, because if we're not careful, we'll get busy, really busy. And then it's all I'm doing is having these, we're just resolving issues, and that person becomes a roommate.
Well, sometimes reinventions are planned and sometimes they're unplanned. And I would definitely call a divorce a reinvention, sometimes planned, sometimes unplanned. So, this is a question for a marriage counselor and a pre marriage counselor. What is your advice to recently divorced couples who are now starting down a new path for whatever reason? as a single divorcee?
The benefit of somebody that in that season of life is that they kind of know what they want. They know what they don't want. And so I think it's being very clear on what you're having some really defined expectations when you're going into this new relationship. I am huge on coaching, so I'm going to advocate that before you guys go down that road, get with the coach, get with somebody that can talk through all that different things, because you're not just bringing in your past, you're bringing in their past, and you're going to combine that. And now we're going to try to do a new journey. When we leave a relationship, enter in another one, and we don't do anything different, how can we expect a different outcome?
A lot of people feel stuck or overwhelmed, whether it's due to their past, maybe their family, their career, of course. What is your advice to those people? How were you able to shift your mindset?
I'm going to go back to people. Being around people that are going to support you, love you, and encourage you to become the best version of yourself. But then you also are going to have to want it for you, not want it because you think people want you to become something else, not want it because you think this is going to make them happy. This is going to make my spouse happy, my parents happy, my business. No, what do you want? What is your highest and your best? I'm a big vision board guy. I like writing things down as I'm reinventing. Because if you don't see it, it'll never happen. Write it down and say, what do I need to do to get there? What steps, what people, what connections, what's sabotaging me now from getting there? What I need to stop doing. So sometimes it's harder to unlearn something than it is to learn something new. Sometimes we just got to stop our old practices, not go get a new tool, just stop doing the thing that's sabotaging. But if you got a plan, you work that plan, right? And so recreating yourself, reinventing yourself requires tenacity, it requires community, and it requires a desire to say, you know what, I want more for me. Because if you do it for everybody else, when you get there, it's like, but when you do it for you do it for me, that's a different outcome.
You've written a book called The Vibrant Blueprint: How I Broke Free from Labels, Lies, and Limitations. It sounds like the perfect title for someone who wants to reinvent themselves. So what will people learn if they read your book?
Man, you're going to hear some personal stories. You're going to hear just some of my things of how I navigated through. And then really the truth is, we all have seasons where we go through where we feel like, am I enough? Am I good enough? Can I make it? Can I do this? Man, what if they find out who I really am? What all these different things. And so if you're ever in a place when we're there, it's like, how do I overcome this? And so it's basically it's 8 principles that I wrote down that you can navigate through to make sure that whatever season you're in, if you feel like there's more, then there is more. Sometimes we have to reinvent ourselves for your career, your marriage, your health, and I think that is the journey. The reinvention is part of the journey. And so sometimes you look and say, man, I'm starting all over at 40 or 45 or 50 or whatever. No. You've had 40 or 50 years of learning. You may be starting a new thing, but you're not new at it. You're just packaging it different. Everything you've gone is for this moment, for this season. And so much of our identity gets caught up in what we do and who we are. It's so hard. But when we really pull back and say, you know what? I am enough. I don't need a title, but everything I've navigated through to this season is to help me move and become the best version of myself moving forward. Life is happening for me, not to me.
Pastor Kenneth, thank you so much for being here and being a guest on my podcast. If people want to know more about you, get your book, where can they find you or follow you?
www.kennethwclark.org, or I'm on Facebook or vibrantfamilies.org. I'd love to have you be a part of what we're doing.
Well, I know that your story of reinvention, multiple reinventions, will inspire so many others. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate your time. So what about you? Were you inspired by PK's story? Every one of us has a story. And for some, that story may have started with labels, limitations, or circumstances we didn't choose. But what matters most isn't where you started, it's the decisions you make moving forward. So here's the challenge. Ask yourself, what's one label you have for yourself that's holding you back? And what would it look like to reject it starting today? Sometimes reinvention is unplanned, but if you're choosing reinvention, it doesn't happen by accident. It takes intention. It takes action. It takes the courage to stop waiting and start building something new. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect timing. You just need to decide. Will you stay where you are, or will you choose something greater? Your next chapter is waiting. Whether you want to reinvent yourself or you have to reinvent yourself, remember, reinvention is possible. Go make it happen for you today.